Okay, BB Nate, you've seen the Batman. We talked about it on Friday's show, but we're going to talk about it more on this episode. After all is said and done, give me your one-word reaction to this film. Go.
Speechless, I guess, is a good way of putting it.
You just don't even know what you're what to say.
Still don't.
All right. What about you, Samuel the Hutt?
I really racked my brain. This is the best one I could think of. Perfect.
Dang.
Yeah. What about you, Deb?
I'm going to say game-changing. I thought it was fantastic. We're going to talk a lot more about the Batman, but it's probably going to be very different than what you're hearing on some other podcasts. Plus, there's a new general in town on Superman and Lois, and we'll look at the amazing legacy of the studio executive who saved Star Wars. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody listen to this.
It was kind of foreshadowing in a lot of ways. Just the way the movie was going to play out.
Of course. Yeah, with it being issue 1 of Long Halloween, which I preferred over a tie-in issue or anything like that because it gave us this ability, and it's a cool cover as well. It's really cool.
Yeah, but it's the Long Halloween first issue, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Which is cool. So awesome. Well, welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast, the only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature and to be endorsed by Ryan Johnson. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story, it is written on our souls, that these myths speak to that story, and that is why we are talking about the comic books that influenced the Batman. Everything but Superman, it feels like. And Mr. Alan Ladd Jr. and his influence on Star Wars and the film industry in general. I am David. I am the dad.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad.
Hello, gentlemen. And I am honored to be joined every week by my two amazing sons, Nate.
Yes.
Explain how we're going to talk about the Batman.
Yeah,
this time.
there was a lot of comic books that influenced the Batman, and we're going to be talking about a few, not all of them, because we would be here for hours if we talked about all of them.
All right. What about you, Sam?
Well, I mean, you kind of gave it away, but we're going to be talking about someone who's largely responsible for Star Wars even happening in the first place, and it's not George Lucas.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to hear of his passing last week. So definitely worth having a conversation about him. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about this hour-long episode of Superman and Lois, where we got about 5 minutes of Superman and a whole lot of other drama.
Now you know how it feels.
It does. But in the end, I really kind of walked away from this episode wanting to know more about Mitch Anderson. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, I want to thank you for listening to the show. Thank you so much for being a part of our Tatooine Sons family. If you are a returning listener, if you're one of those people that comes to every episode every Tuesday, every episode every Friday, thank you so much for doing that. If you're a casual listener where you kind of pop in and out, we appreciate you joining us too. We'd love for you to engage even more and make sure you subscribe or follow on the podcast app that you're listening to so that you don't miss an episode. And if it's your first time here, welcome to Tatooine Sons.
Welcome.
We're excited to have you on here. Hope that you're here because you like positive, family-friendly nerd culture, because that's pretty much all we're going to do.
That sums it up.
With it. We're going to be doing that. I want to thank you, our sponsor. We have a new sponsor this week, the Heroes Journal. We're going to talk a lot about them over the next several weeks. And I'm really, really excited about that. But before, we spend too much time just kind of talking about what we're going to talk about, let's talk about what we're talking about.
Yeah, there you go. Congratulations. You got it right this week.
Yes. You're like on the street.
You are. And the Batman is finally out, and there were a ton of Easter eggs that made me almost jump out of my seat. So let's talk about a few of them.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Batman has no limits.
One comic series or story to read for a fan to read before they go watch this movie. Which one?
Before?
Yeah.
Judging by how influential it was, definitely Year One.
Year One?
Oh my gosh.
And
It
you're
was
going to end up
used so
talking about
much.
that
Yes.
a lot in this episode,
Yeah,
right?
it was used so much in this movie. The Batman had a ton of Easter eggs, and a lot of them were just for the mega DC fans, but a few of them were a lot of fun. The first one is just Catwoman and her character in this movie. First off, her character was very close to the Year One version of Catwoman, with her being in the slums and living in a single apartment with a roommate, Anika, who was in the comics and is younger, and kind of Selena takes her
like a stray.
Yeah, like a stray under her wing. And so I was so excited to see that. Sammy and I freaked out to Sammy during the movie. It was
Did you know that that's what was going on when he was freaking out about that? Are you familiar with that at all?
I mean, I expected there to, like, I understood the whole roommate connection and stuff, but no, I didn't realize that was what he was freaking out about.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
that
I was excited to see that, because you did see that in Dark Knight Rises, but it was kind of, it just felt off.
It was different.
It wasn't a protection
in the
kind
animated
of thing.
version. Yeah, okay.
But I was excited to see that. And in Year One, Catwoman gives Carmine Falcone a bit of a scratch on the face. That also happens in this movie. Now, Sam, you called out the claw marks on our first viewing. What did you think of that callback?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And it also kind of ties to the comic that they gave us too, because that's Long Halloween, and Falcone's in that, and he's got these 3 scratches on his cheek. So it's kind of like a little origin for the, if you go back home and read the comic, you'd be like, hey, maybe he got those scratches from Catwoman. So another one of those little things they threw in there that, I mean, for casual watchers, she just scratched him up. But for us, we're like, hey, that's important. So that was, it
was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I didn't catch on any of that happening with it, but I don't think I've read Year One. I haven't even seen
the movie.
I haven't even seen the movie of that.
Both are great.
Have you seen the movie, Sam?
Have I seen I don't think
You
I've
haven't
seen Year One.
No.
Now I want to see Year One. Is it on HBO Max?
It is.
I got a flight this weekend.
It's strangely only an hour and 4 minutes long, so it's a short movie.
That's going to get downloaded. All right. So yeah, definitely excited to watch that and see if I pick up on those.
You'll notice a lot of similarities for Catwoman. And the next one is Edward Elliot and Hush. Edward Elliot is actually the great grandfather to Thomas Elliot, aka Hush. We even see a nod to Hush himself with some big white letters splattered over Thomas Wayne's face saying the word Hush. Do y'all think we get a Hush in this universe?
I don't know if we get a Hush necessarily. I think that was just another little Easter egg or reference for the fans. Would it work and would it be interesting? Absolutely. I think it's a really cool character if it's pulled off right. But no, I don't think that was put in there to foreshadow anything. I think it was just a little nod.
I think we get some Hush stuff in the future. And the reason being is since the movie has finally released today, the website that they were using for promotion, which is actually the same website in the movie.
Radalata, yeah.
Radalata, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. That has now started to have new things happening with it. And the clue in that before was leading to the video that has Hush in it, doesn't it?
Yes.
And it's really fast, but I feel like they're like they've got big plans for the future, and they're going to be moving down.
Yeah, and in the Hush comics, Riddler kind of orchestrated everything. He wasn't a Hush. They kind of skipped a step with the animated movie and just made Riddler Hush, not Thomas Elliot. But
okay, so there's a big difference between the comics
and the animated,
the animated, and you didn't really care for the animated.
The animated is fine. It just felt really off. It felt like they wanted to get Riddler in the universe just to kill him off, because that's what they did, and it just felt really strange. Not the greatest animated movie, but it wasn't bad by any means. It was fine. Now this next one was like just great for me, probably, and not many other people noticed it, but the journal. We see Bruce writing his nightly events in a black journal titled The Gotham Project Year 2. Now, this is a reference to the prologue of one of my favorite Batman comic storylines, Batman Rip. Now, Bruce has a black casebook in that storyline and writes about his events and his greatest cases in it. It's a nice little nod to that. Yeah. You used to be able to, you can't find it now because they've discontinued it, but you can find the black casebook You
really?
can buy it. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It was really cool. Now, this one, I've seen literally nobody else mention the potential Firefly. In the memorial scene, we see a man talking about how there is no safety net in this city for the less privileged. We eventually see that he is horribly burned and Bruce walks away, but the camera lingers a bit longer on him. This very well could be Garfield Lynn's, aka Firefly. A different take on him since apparently in this universe his daughter died, but normally in the comics, it's his adopted sister. Still very cool if it happens. Y'all think that this could be Firefly, or am I just overthinking it?
And now this is the same guy that's at the end of the movie too, isn't it? That's in the Riddler costume. Yeah, it is. No. It's the same guy. I watched it again last night.
It's not. He wasn't
not
burned.
Even close.
So the first guy's burned and the guy at the end isn't?
No.
The guy at the end is just horribly beaten up because Batman kind of unloaded on him.
But that's not the same guy.
No.
I was convinced it's the same guy.
No.
I'll have to watch again tonight.
I guess
so.
I mean,
you know, it was kind of felt like you don't put that in there. They lingered on it for a little too long.
Yeah, it's a character they brought in, but I don't know if it's just not a character. I mean, do you think do you really were from the beginning though? The first showing, we were watching it. You were saying Firefly. The second he showed up on screen,
of the burn on his face. The burning is a big thing about Firefly, the pyromaniac and all that stuff. And he obviously has motive against people and against the city. And you don't.
So how does the character play out further in the comic books? Who is Firefly and kind of how does he continue?
He just is an absolute pyromaniac. He just burns everything, and he can be a captivating villain because he really does. He does at some points target the rich, which would play into what Riddler did in this movie. They could play on to more of that, but normally he's just a side villain, so they couldn't make him a main villain. They are for Batgirl, which works, but I'm not sure what they would do with him in this universe.
I mean, it'd be cool. I would love for you to have uncovered that Easter egg when nobody else has, because it really was. I mean, if you're listening to this show right now, I was sitting right next to BB Nate on the very first showing of this film. And as soon as this character, this individual that he's talking about pops up on screen, he immediately identified him as Firefly. Yeah. There was no hesitation in him. He knew it. He was freaking out about it. And I'm like, not a comic book fan. I mean, a reader. So I was kind of like, who's Firefly? But anyway, what do you think, Sam? Do you think it could be?
I think there's merit to it. I mean, they definitely gave that guy more screen time than most like just extras, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
kind of like the boy. We're all thinking maybe the little boy might play in later, but I think it could happen, and like you said, it could be a main villain. But I definitely think it would be a really cool addition for this universe. Yeah,
I do too. Now, this next one, is that Venom? No, not the Marvel character. The drug that gives Bane his strength.
Venom.
Do y'all think that what Bruce injected himself with is venom or just a strange green liquid like adrenaline?
Why you point at me first?
I thought
you wanted me to talk. I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out what the question is. Sorry.
I think they could probably spin it either way that they want it to. I would really like for it to be Venom because that's a really cool idea.
And it plays very well into how it was in the comics.
Right. Yeah. So. You talked about that on Friday's episode, but I think it'd be cool. I think Bane is a very cool character if he's played right. I'm not saying the Dark Knight Rises one wasn't good. It was just very different than anything we'd gotten before. So maybe something closer to what we've come to expect from Bane. I'm not saying maybe the big hulking guy. But I think that would be really cool. And like you said, he's actually apparently a very, very intelligent villain, which would fit well into this universe as well. So I hope it's Venom, and that's how they bring it in.
The Bane in The Dark Knight Rises was not as popular.
No, because he didn't have venom at all. I mean, the mask was just morphine to hide the pain, and he was just really strong. That's all it was.
Yeah, I didn't like that Venom. That Bane.
It wasn't great. Either. No,
I remember
the movie itself is really good, but Bane just fell flat.
I remember reading the comics. And Bane,
Batman Nightfall, that kind of stuff.
And Bane was terrifying.
He was.
And so I was disappointed in the Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. I was confused by the Bane in The Dark Knight Rises because of it not having Venom. So if they want to bring Bane into this, I think it's a risk because that puts a lot of pressure on getting it right this time because it was already an unpopular.
Well, also they didn't get Riddler right the last time.
Oh, I agree.
They did fine just now.
I agree. But the fact that he injects himself, I don't think that it doesn't seem to fit the rest of the story for that to have been Venom. The rest of the movie doesn't seem to have him using anything like that.
He needed to.
Yeah, it just does. But you know,
didn't see him using adrenaline either. So
yeah, it
just see him using anything.
Okay, maybe it is. I don't know.
We'll see. It's very weird how they just brought in a weird green liquid.
In the Batman universe, it makes more sense for it to be Venom.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It does. Right. Now that y'all have seen the movie a second time, has y'all's ratings changed or stayed the same?
Oh, well, I bumped mine up from the 9.9 to the 10. It is just a fantastic movie. Everything you could want in it. It portrays the character well. It has an amazing story. The acting's great. I mean, there's literally not a complaint I can think of. Even, I know some people complain about the length. I personally like long movies.
Same.
I mean, then again, Lord of the Rings is one of my favorite movies of all time. But it doesn't drag. It moves from start to finish. It doesn't feel like 3 hours. I think it's just a fantastic movie.
Dad?
I said it when we were walking out the theater last night. The movie makes a lot more sense and is a lot more compelling when you stay awake during the Riddler interrogation
Oh my
scene.
gosh, that Riddler interrogation scene.
And I didn't even realize I had dozed off. And it was just because literally I'd been up since 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so I was super exhausted the first time we watched it. But it slows down. And I think that's probably one of the complaints that you're going to hear about this movie is it is 3 hours and most of it is just intensity after intensity after intensity after intensity. And then it happened with me the first night and it happened with Mom a little bit last night. You get to that moment where they finally capture Riddler and things have started to sort of, you know, he's not chasing Oswald Cobblepot. He's not battling, you know, all of these guys in the iceberg.
It's like
lounge.
You're exhausted at that point.
It's like he has. It's sort of like your adrenaline goes down at that point. And so I think that's one of the things that could create challenges for people watching this movie. But having said that, it's an important and it's a critical scene. And watching it last night, I was just like, this guy is creepy and weird. And it made the movie so much better knowing what was happening in that scene. So I was at a 9 already. I'll go ahead and I'll bump it up to a 9.5.
Okay.
At this point.
95.
Because
wow.
a 9.5, just because I want to leave room for future movies with Matt Reeves and the Batman because I do think that we're getting more.
Wise.
I mean, he's already talking like it's a certainty. So
I think that there's like the deal's already done.
Yeah.
They're just waiting to announce it. Maybe
basically.
I mean, they practically did with the new cipher that they released today. It's Riddler basically saying the game's not over. This is only the beginning. So
the cipher on the website with the
Rata-Alata.
Rata-Alata size. Wow.
I got to find the whole quote. Somebody cracked the cipher, but yeah, it's basically just saying this is the beginning.
What about you? I mean, you were already at a 10.
I was already at 10, so you can't go any higher.
But I don't want to try to get higher on your ratings. I just want to get, having viewed it a second time from you as like the Batman super fan in here. What was the experience like for you watching it the second time, and what was your takeaway coming out of it?
It was a lot easier to follow. I wasn't as, hyped about it. I wasn't just excited. I was able to actually dive into what it was, and it helped me understand the movie better. It helped me look at it closer and understand what it means and just kind of what the characters are. And it helped me with figuring out, I mean, I loved Catwoman in the first viewing, but I knew that after a second viewing, I would appreciate her character more, and I did. I really did appreciate her character more. So I loved what we got, and it was just easier to comprehend and follow is really what it was. Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So it looks like I have the dad moment.
Yeah,
this week.
you asked for the dad moment this week. So
yeah.
I have no idea what he's getting ready to say here.
I am your father.
Okay, so last night after Mom saw The Batman, she said that she can't recommend this movie to anyone because of the content in it. It was really dark and had a fair amount of language, which all of that is very true. It's something that should be considered, but in two ways. One, is it appropriate? And two, does it hinder the movie or in some ways even help it? Let's answer the first question first. Is it appropriate? In this version, it's, in my opinion, necessary. Let me explain by answering the second question. Does it hinder the movie or help it? If it wasn't for the darkness and realism, the message of this movie wouldn't be as strong as it is. The real world is full of darkness, and you might be thinking that stuff shouldn't be in a comic book movie, but I disagree. At least in this case. The Batman needed to feel real. It needed to remind us of the dark we do live in, the dark we see pop up on our phones every day. It needed to show that
What'd you get, Twitter?
No, I got started getting push notifications from a weird Samsung app that I never downloaded for news, but it keeps sending like political news and I can't figure out how to stop it. But it needed to show that there is hope as well. Batman eventually finds out that hope is what cuts through the dark, not vengeance. What makes Batman so important and so popular in this world is because he can be any one of us. One person standing up against the dark and using hope for those who have none. Batman has always been a symbol for the people. So while, yes, this movie was dark and not family friendly, neither is the world we live in, but we can see how Batman gives hope and ourselves strive to do that a little more every day for those who have none and be our own heroes.
That was good, BB. Right. I'm going to go ahead and get some. I got eyelash in my eye here.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah.
Real quick, so I'm going to let you go ahead and finish out the segment.
All right. I can't believe I finally got to see the Batman, and it was so much better than I could have imagined. And the callbacks to classic comics were fantastic as well.
It was good, BB Nate. All right. Let's see if I can get myself put back together here as we'll get ready to go into some bad news and some of that garbage that's out there online.
Oh, my gosh.
It seems another Star Wars production is being canceled.
Again?
It's all but been confirmed that we know who is playing the live action Ezra Bridger because I've read it on Twitter now.
Oh, so
and Mark Hamill appeared in a children's hospital, but it wasn't really Mark Hamill, but Mark Hamill got all the publicity from it, but that's okay.
What?
Yeah, we'll explain it next on Bad News.
This is not going to go the way you think.
All right, well, we started a new partnership over here at Tatooine Sons. We kind of talked about it at the opening of the show. It's with this amazing company that has developed a really powerful tool that we're just beginning to use. We haven't really jumped in very much about it yet, but it's called the Hero's Journal. So this journal actually combines the concepts around story theory and productivity science with these epic themes that we love, like adventures and magic and all those kinds of things, to help heroes using their journal take control of their own personal story. Now, I mentioned it earlier that we're just now getting started with our journals. In fact, we barely even had a chance to check them out.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at it a little bit. But
I haven't really looked at it much, but yeah.
Did you get a chance to watch any of the videos or anything on that?
Yeah. I watched the intro videos they have on their website that the book links to, and I read through the first few pages as well. It's really, really fascinating.
What's so fascinating about it to you guys?
Well, it's, I'll be honest. At first, I thought it was geared more towards younger audiences, but the more I looked at it and the more I learned about it, the more I'm like, wow, this is just. It's a tool, like you said, and it's actually just really, really fascinating. Just the idea that they're using real science to the real science is behind this whole thing, and the fact that they are so confident in their product too. They're like, it's 90 days, or is the journals for 90 days, and you are to create a habit, and it's just such a. It could be a very powerful tool, but they don't treat it like it's his life or death thing. Like I was watching the videos and they were like, the pages aren't dated. So quests sometimes get delays or sidetracked or whatever. It's like, it's fine. If you miss a day, you just pick right back up where you left off. Yeah. The important thing is that you start again, and they're like your quest or whatever, your goal by the end of the 90 days, do they have you write it every day? Because it might change a little bit over the 90 days. You might refine it or broaden it or change it outright. It's not as like set in stone, hardcore. Whenever you think about trying to change a habit or start a new habit or anything, you think, all right, I got to stop immediately. And if I screw up, everything's over from this point. But they don't treat it like that. It's a really, really cool concept.
Kind of when you first looked at your journal, BB Nate, what were some of your initial thoughts with the journal, and when we sat down and looked at it together and talked about it, and any videos you watched?
I mean, it was just the thing that stood out to me was how high quality it was. It was very well put together. Everything is high quality. The art that they do have in it already is very impressive. The storytelling, I guess, interesting. The ways that they're trying to make this a helpful tool is very interesting to see, because you don't see this used a lot. So it's a very cool way to do it.
And one other thing I liked is that not only is it you're going through your story, but there's even like a little mini story within the book as well, just through the illustrations and stuff. And as you go through each day, the story progresses just a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Just like a real story, it even has 3 acts and everything. So
yeah, it's awesome. And we're going to be jumping into the first act of our quests in the next few weeks, but we wanted to, give it a little time, give a few episodes for you guys to learn a little bit more about this. We want to ask you to actually join us on our adventures. So if you go to the link that we're going to put into the show notes here, then you can actually download a PDF version of the first act for yourself. It's absolutely free. You don't have to do anything but just give them your email address, and then they will send you that first act in PDF and give you some suggestions and tips going forward with it. And that way you can get that downloaded and you can join us as we begin our quest and go through this process with us. And we're going to talk a lot more about that over the next few episodes and how that's going to work. But please understand, yes, this is a partnership that we're doing with the Heroes Journal, but I really think that this is something that you guys as listeners could really come together with us on, and we can actually see ourselves create our own little company or our own little fellowship going forward, where we're working with each other over the next 90 days to help kind of change our own stories and accomplish some things in our lives that we want to accomplish as we slay some dragons, or we go and we blow up a Death Star or whatever we have to do with it. So we are really excited about this. Please check out the link in the show notes. We can't wait to have you join our little fellowship.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
Okay, headline 1. Disney removes another Star Wars show from its release schedule. So while this headline from InsideTheMagic.com sounds like another devastating blow to a future Star Wars film, akin to the scrapping of the original Boba Fett film or that 1-year delay of Rogue Squadron, this isn't nearly as concerning as the headline would suggest. This is in regards to The Bad Batch Season 2, which was believed to be releasing sometime in spring 2022. That was because of a release schedule posted in Star Wars Insider magazine. But the latest issue of that magazine has actually changed the release schedule. It doesn't say it the same way. It used to say spring 2022, and now it says coming soon.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure if that means anything. But anyway, this was buried down about 1,000 words below in an article that talks about everything in Star Wars except The Bad Batch. It was classic clickbait, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a clickbait level 9.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Mina Massoud fuels Ezra Bridger's speculation anew in this latest post.
Nice.
For a couple of years now, Mina Massoud has stated on record that he would love to play a live-action version of Ezra Bridger, the protagonist of the animated series Star Wars Rebels.
Maybe, Nate, would you be cool with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer Taylor Gray, honestly, but that's just because
the voice.
I get it. Yeah. But he was Aladdin, and it felt very similar in those episodes. So yeah.
Well, earlier this week, he shared a Twitter account's fan art version of Massoud as Ezra, and EpicStream.com decided that was worthy of hyping things up a little bit.
So it was a fan art, and he shared it,
and
that means he's fueling speculation anew in his latest post.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think that's it. So what did you give it clickbait level?
Oh, this was getting a clickbait level 8.
8?
For sure.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Give you an 8. All right, here we go. Lay it on us.
Yes, Fluke Skywalker, Mark Hamill impersonator and cosplayer, warms the internet's heart after communicating to a fan using ASL. While we love to poke fun at these clickbait websites during our bad news segment because, well, they deserve it. When one of them posts something worthy of reading, we want to highlight that as well. We got this covered as one of the worst of these websites, but earlier this week, they shared a story about our friend, Fluke Skywalker, and a moment when he was visiting a children's hospital in his full Luke Skywalker cosplay. He encounters a young boy with hearing loss and uses ASL to communicate with him. It's a very touching moment. Originally, the Twitterverse was buzzing, believing that it was actually Mark Hamill dressed as Luke Skywalker, but it was actually Fluke.
Now, hold on, pause before you continue, because have you guys remember seeing him in Chicago?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his Last Jedi garb.
Yeah.
And he looks just like
he does
this. So I mean, it's understandable that somebody might have seen the video and be like, "Oh my gosh, Mark Hamill is doing this." That's exactly what happened. So.
Yeah, but when we saw that we got this covered, posted a good article about it, we thought we should celebrate that along with Fluke. Great job, Fluke.
Yeah,
this gets a clickbait level of 1.
Give it a 1.
It's the lowest we've ever had.
There's nothing.
What is happening?
But I mean, it's a worthy to click on article, but it really isn't a clickbait article, a headline.
Yeah,
but it came from we got this covered, so it fits in the segment.
Exactly.
So here's the thing: I'm really excited because we're going to get Fluke on the show here for the interview series sometime in the next few weeks. We're going to have him on, so I'm excited about that. All right, there's a new general in town on Superman and Lois. Anyone who watches any of the Arrowverse shows knows that the creators kind of play fast and loose with the characters that they bring in, but that doesn't mean that they don't create interesting tie-ins to their comic book counterparts. That was a hard sentence to...
Comic book
You can write this stuff, but you can't read it. All right. Could we be seeing any of these tie-ins with General Mitch Anderson? We'll talk about that next.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
Saying that he doesn't really want to bring in this Superman or anything like that into this Batverse.
I'm happy with that. I know that Metropolis and LexCorp are a thing in this, but I'm happy that he wouldn't be bringing in any of the other Justice League members. Keep this a Batverse.
Yeah, I agree. The Batman's got a rich enough universe as it is. We don't need.
We don't need
that. No, we don't need any of the super peoples in this.
All right. Well, let's talk a little Superman. So he'll never, this version of Superman, as much as I enjoy Superman and Lois, I don't want this version to cross over into the Batverse.
No, it doesn't work
with Pattinson. Right?
Robert Pattinson.
Is that Pattinson? Okay. Anyway, we've got this Mitch Anderson character, and he actually exists in the Arrowverse. He's exclusively in Superman and Lois. I wasn't sure about that. I looked in and I actually did the research on this episode.
Wow.
To see if he was in any of the other CW shows.
I could have told you that.
We don't know much about him. He just kind of shows up in season 2 of the show. He's been brought in to replace Lois Lane's father, who is General Lane, and he functions as the new Department of Defense's liaison with Superman. One thing we learned early on is he really doesn't like or trust Superman. He essentially tries to force him to take an oath of allegiance to the United States. When Superman refuses, saying his oath is to all of humanity, things begin to grow increasingly tense between the two of them throughout the series. Anderson at one point even creates a team called the Supermen of America. We've talked about that before as well. There are humans that are enhanced using this XK or X kryptonite. In fact, even in this week's episode, it gets so intense that Anderson goes so far as to use red sun technology to weaken and then imprison Superman. BB Nate.
Yeah.
How's Soup's going to get out of jail?
Yeah, well, he's going to use Talro for sure because they're in the same cell together, because that's genius on Anderson's part, but that's classic CW anyway. So
he's putting two Superman brothers,
in one
Kryptonian
prison.
brothers in the same prison.
Yeah.
Which now that I'm thinking about it, that's kind of cool because we got two other Kryptonian brothers that
are in their own kind of prison, honestly. Yeah. But I do think we see Jordan and John try to break out Superman. I mean, we do see John in the classic Superboy outfit later on in this season, so I'm sure we'll get that.
Photos, right?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get that sometime soon as well, and of course Jordan. So I really do think we'll have that, and of course with Lois Lane's dad, General Lane, training Jordan, it's eventually going to happen soon. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that.
What do you think about Soups being imprisoned?
That's interesting. I thought that was more of a Batman thing to do, but no, I think it's kind of cool whenever you see these characters in a position where they're not so super all the time. They're just kind of like a normal person, and they've got to figure out, they got to do things the way that everybody does. So it would be interesting. I think it's cool. It would be cool for his sons to break him out of prison. Because I'm sure he saved them on a number of occasions.
Oh, yeah.
So it'd be cool for the tables to be turned.
It was a cool scene cinematically, visually.
Oh my gosh.
The way that they paralleled the opening scene where Bizarro Superman is on his Earth trying to escape from the military leadership or forces there. And it's a mirrored image later, the Superman trying to escape General Anderson's forces. And it was like shot for shot, move for move.
That's just cool. Literally mirrored.
It was like a mirrored image of it, which was really, really cool. Mitch Anderson's got a much deeper story.
He does
in the comic books. Are you familiar with the?
Well, a little bit.
Okay, because I was very unfamiliar with this. But I thought it was interesting. In DC Comics, Mitch Anderson is tied directly to the events of Doomsday. His house is actually destroyed, and he and his mother are nearly killed during that cross country brawl between Superman and Doomsday. Which I can literally, as I even say that sentence, see myself in my room, in my parents' basement, reading the Death of Superman stories that I can't find anymore. And that makes me sad. Anyway, Superman and Justice League are able to save Mitch and his mother. Mitch then goes on to believe that this results in the tide turning in the battle between Superman and Doomsday. And he thinks it leads to Superman's death. And he struggles with that for a long time. There's a whole storyline with that. He becomes part of the storyline going forward as the Earth mourns Superman's death. So BB Nate, as much as we want to think that Doomsday's tease at the beginning of the season was nothing more than just a tease, it does kind of feel like there could be some storylines and some characters that might bring him back into the series. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I do think that we might be getting Doomsday at least some point in this series, maybe even at the end of this season to kind of cap off the season. And of course, it is interesting how they're bringing in Superboy in, since he was introduced right after Superman died in the Reign of the Superman run. And so
it looks just like him.
And it looks exactly like him. So that's really interesting as well.
Help me understand that, though, because the Superboy in the Resurrection series, I don't know, is Reign of the Superman?
Reign of the Superman.
Okay. Yeah. With that one, where I remember when that first issue started coming out, and you had the cyborg Superman, you had the clone version of the Superman, you had Steel. Your John Henry Irons, which is obviously a part of this storyline as well. Yeah. And then you had the Superboy. The Superboy was more like a clone, wasn't he?
It was. It was created by Lex Luthor using Lex's and Superman's DNA.
So how does John become Superboy later?
I'm not sure. They might just make it like that. He becomes Superboy later on in the comics because kind of Connor Kent, who is Superboy, it just kind of takes his own role, not even as like Superman, just kind of his own superhero. He still calls himself.
So it's kind of like the Nightwing thing.
Yeah, okay. It's a lot like Nightwing. It's like Tim Drake calling himself Red Robin after he changed from Robin to his own hero. So not much happens, but Jonathan,
Red Robin, yum.
Yeah, but Jonathan kind of just
took the mac and cheese off the menu, and I'm still upset about that. Like you're upset about missing your comics. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that.
One's worth a little bit more, Sammy.
It's worth a lot
just a
to
little
me.
bit.
Yes. All right. That got weird. Okay. Sam, any thoughts on Doomsday?
Yeah,
Mitch Anderson.
I kind of hope they bring in Doomsday, and I mean, it would be sad to see Superman. Wow.
Yeah, totally screw up Clark.
Wow.
Make that a change in the story.
Man, you watched the Batman twice and you just go dark.
I'm just saying they're always wanting to change these storylines.
Story.
And with how they're setting up Jordan for this season, to change the way for it to still be Superman and Lois, they're gonna have to kill off one of the kids. So I wouldn't be surprised if it is Jordan.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Himself.
Of all the characters in this one, I'm fine
okay
with that.
It would be a sacrifice, not a he just killed off. It would be like the Superman sacrifice.
That's great.
Like
sacrifice him.
I'm sure they'll resurrect
him.
Just like
they would resurrect him, but it would completely change the path of the story and give an amazing plot line for season 3. The drive, the grief of Superman dealing with that. Jonathan would probably fall into a dark place. He already is in a dark place. I would love to see how his powers influence influence that, and then we would see problems with Sarah and Lana and how they deal with it, and Lois dealing with that, and her journalism is being affected by that. Honestly, it would change the whole series and give a great plot line for season 3.
Nate,
I'm with Nate.
You really love these stories. I mean, I'm seriously, you're a creative guy, so it's really quite cool. All right, so let's kind of get back to the Mitch Anderson conversation on this, because he eventually in the comics he gains some powers. I'm not even quite sure how it happens. I don't even know. Do you know really how it happens?
I don't know. Okay.
He gains powers of like magnetism and adhesion. So he's
what
kind
does
of
adhesion mean? Like
Spider-Man? Sticking adhesives.
Yeah, so he sticks to walls.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's Magneto Spider-Man.
Yeah. So he becomes a superhero. He's named Outburst. And Outburst is later recruited and becomes the leader of a group called Superman of America. I know we've talked a little bit about that before. This group is a team of young heroes, but they're actually funded by Lex Luthor and created by Lex Luthor. And they actively oppose Superman during the comic storylines where a fake evil Superman tries to take over the world while the real Superman is imprisoned. All right. So now while the storylines are definitely different here, what we do have in Superman and Lois right now, BB-Nate, is a General Mitch Anderson leading a team called the Supermen of America while the real Superman is imprisoned. And there's another Superman, Bizarro, who could potentially escape and wreak some havoc. Is Outburst coming to this show? Is Mitch Anderson going to become Outburst in this show? And if so, how?
I think that it's a very strong possibility. You don't really bring in this character named Mitch Anderson if you're not going to bring in Outburst and have all these storylines setting up. It just wouldn't really make sense. I do think we see XK being used as a way to become Outburst, since they're kind of showing that it gives everybody else these different abilities. Some people get the ice breath, some people get the laser eyes. John gets the strength and the supervision. So it really could give him a separate powers, judging by something. I don't know. We might take a different type of XK mixed with green kryptonite and somehow. I'm not sure what we'll see. I'm not sure how it'll happen, but I do think that it's a good chance that it will happen.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think Nate makes a good point. Why bring in a character named Mitch Anderson?
You could make him the leader of the Supermen of America.
You could bring in any person, call him whatever you want. This is an intentional choice. I think you're right. I think the XK thing is a very good possibility. Maybe it's like a bad strain or something, so it gives him different powers. But I think you're right, Nate. I think that's what's going on here.
Lex Luthor's all over that story.
Yeah.
He is.
Is Lex Luthor, we talked about this last episode, is Lex Luthor going to be a part of the show?
I don't think so.
He needs to be a part of the show. How do you have Superman's story without Lex Luthor?
I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of his actor in this the Arrowverse. So
well, it could be different.
Honestly, with judging by how this is going, it very well could be different. But
I think you do it in the next season.
I think you do it in the next season too.
Okay.
Change that. Figure out how to tie Jordan with that.
Okay. Well, it could be
last resort. Clark going to Lex as a last resort to save Jordan. Then Lex totally screwing that up.
He is revived. Yeah. It goes bad, kind of like Red Hood.
Exactly.
Almost.
No, that's not bad.
I like it.
I like it.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. It could be that all we ever get from General Mitch Anderson is this high-level military leader who doesn't trust Superman. I don't know. We'll see. But after all this conversation, I do hope we get some Outburst in maybe one or two other characters. Doomsday, Lex Luthor, Doomsday. And Little Doomsday too, before the end of season 2. So, all right, it's time for some movie moments, which is really, really fun because the Batman is so scary that there are no other movie that wants to go up against him next weekend as well.
Not surprised.
We'll talk about the films that are coming out in April because it doesn't seem like anything else wants to come out in March, and then all the projections for next weekend for the box office. That's next on Movie Moments.
At last, we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last, we will have revenge.
Yeah, no new releases this week because everybody is afraid of the Batman, which makes sense. We were going to be getting Doctor Strange 2 this month, which is weird to think about, but
it's going to wait for 2 months.
They waited because this movie was going to be so big.
There's a lot of conversation within the movie world that's not good for movies. That we've reached this point in post-COVID cinema that they're afraid to release more than one blockbuster run at a time because they're still afraid of people going to the theater. So I'm curious about that. So.
Yeah, we'll see how that turns out. But for new trailers this week, we got a Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore trailer. It comes out April 15th, and it is the third installment of the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them series, which follows the adventures of Newt Scamander.
Yeah, we've seen it. I mean,
the trailer. Yeah.
Is there any? We haven't watched the Harry Potter movies, so we aren't interested in the Fantastic Beasts movies. But what are your thoughts on this? If you didn't know it was Harry Potter,
if I didn't know it was Harry Potter,
what would you think about this movie?
It looks fun.
It does look fun.
It looks like a lot of fun. And I mean, you have Jude Law in it, so you know it's going to be good.
That's true. He's a sexy looking man.
You say so yourself because you've been told you look like Jude Law.
I don't see it.
I don't see it either. But honestly, it does look like a lot of fun. You have a great villain. You have Ezra Miller in it, who looks like he's going to be a fun villain. I don't know who he's playing.
He's playing the young bad guy from the Harry Potter stuff. That was played by
Snape. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're right. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, you have what? Mads Mikkelsen?
Yeah, he's playing. He's replacing Johnny Depp's character.
He is.
Actor.
Which is interesting.
They had a whole big thing with Johnny Depp. It was that whole debacle. But he looks like he's going to be. Yeah. Thank you, Amber. But he looks like he's going to be fun. If I didn't know that this was Harry Potter, it looks like a movie that I'd consider going.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it's cool. One thing, I mean, this is just me being me. I feel like it would be a lot cooler, the magic, though, if they didn't use, I mean, I'm about to offend every single Harry Potter fan
they didn't use
on
wands
the planet. But if they didn't use wands, if they had like staffs or something, I think that, I mean, maybe that's kind of Lord of the Rings guy.
Yeah, that's the Lord of the Rings guy in you.
I think you're right. It looks like a fun story.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
And the next one, Morbius, April 1st. The biochemist Michael Morbius tries to cure himself of a rare blood disease, but he inadvertently infects himself with a form of vampirism instead.
That's one heck of a form of vampirism.
Yeah. Okay, this movie, I'm not quite
What are you saying?
about
Because this
it.
is like the third trailer, right?
Yes, this is the final trailer we're getting.
What do you think?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm a little cautious about this movie. I'm not quite sure what to expect. I was excited for Venom. I was excited for Venom 2. Both of them were great. And I'm sure that this one will be fine, but I'm a lot more skeptical about this one than I was any of the other ones. I'm worried that this is going to be a bit of a miss. So
I'm trying to figure out a way to describe how I feel about it or what I think about it. And the only thing I can think of is the best word to describe it is it feels small in a way. And I'm sure there's a better word for it, but the hype around it really isn't all that high, which, I mean, nobody really knows the character very well. Everything in the trailers, it's just kind of like it's the same thing. Nothing about it's all that exciting. We don't even know what the villain does or anything about it. It just kind of feels...
Do we even know who the villain really is?
It's Matt Smith.
It's Matt Smith, but he's you only know he's the villain for about 4 seconds in the last trailer.
And you're like,
know what he does. You've got
Michael Keaton.
as
who seems
to be the Vulture, but maybe not. I don't know.
It's confusing.
It is.
It's a lot of weird stuff. I mean, we'll see it. It'll probably be fine, like Nathan said.
It is interesting that they close out this trailer and like the next big Marvel villain or Marvel legend.
Yeah.
That's it. The next big Marvel legend. Like there's like please come see this. It's a Marvel movie. Is what they're saying.
Basically.
It's nerve-wracking, honestly. It feels like somehow they're being too ambitious with this movie while still playing too cautious. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're achieving that.
They could have brought this character in with someone like in another movie.
Exactly. Bring it in with Venom 2. Pad out the runtime with 30 more minutes, and like at the end, just have a few teases with Michael Morbius so that we understand who he is.
Or do like what happened with Civil War. I mean, that introduced two characters, Black Panther and Spider-Man, right? And then they both went on to get their own movie.
Exactly.
You should. We're already like talking like this movie's not.
We're armchair quarterbacking this,
right? And it hasn't even come out yet. But if this movie, I think that would have been a more successful route.
We'll see.
All right, so now we're recording on Friday.
We are.
So we do not know what the box office will be this weekend.
No, we do not. But we've
got projections from Box Office Pro, which is a great company. They got some great stuff out there. Here's what their projections are officially that they released on their website today.
The Batman with 150 million domestic, which I think is a little low for what it's going to be, but that's just me. I just have high hopes. Uncharted with a strong 10 million domestic,
especially on a weekend with the Batman.
And Dog with another strong 7.5 million domestic, especially for a movie that small. I mean, it made up its whole budget within the first weekend, and it only made awesome. 19 million domestic. So, yeah, I mean, it was a super small movie, but that's great. I'm happy to see that Dog is doing well. I mean, those kind of movies need to be made more. I still haven't seen it. Probably not the best time.
Probably not, since we just lost Buster about 2 weeks ago.
Probably not the best idea.
Probably not the right time to go see that. So.
Yeah, we got a package in the mail today. So if you saw Dad's face, or
go check out our Twitter and Facebook about it.
We got a creepy package in the mail of like newspaper clippings. It's great. But we saw that there was a random package coming in today.
And if it's you listening right now, explain it to us so we can at least enjoy what you're trying to tell us.
We saw that there was a random package coming in today. We're like, what could this be? We're all kind of secretly hoping, I hope it's another weird package, like with more newspaper clippings. Turns out it was an order for some Buster's medicine that we forgot to cancel.
So yeah, that sucks. that did sting a little bit, but
yeah,
it did.
Yeah.
All right. Sam, you're up.
I'm up, yeah. Well, recently a Star Wars legend passed away. He is largely responsible for Star Wars even existing at all, though you may have never heard of him. Up next, we'll talk about Alan Ladd Jr. and his impact on Star Wars and just a lot of movies in general.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets.
You're coming to us. Is as the footsteps of steps.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
Biography about George Lucas, and the stories about Alan Ladd Jr. and that. It's like a major plot line.
Yeah, you've told me about it before.
In the book. And I remember watching him on a lot of the behind-the-scenes documentaries about Star Wars where they actually are interviewing Alan Ladd a lot on it. And
I remember the first time you told me about him. We were walking to the convention center for Star Wars Celebration 2017 at 5 in the morning. We went the long way because your maps took you the wrong way.
Thank you, Apple.
Thank you, Apple.
I remember this.
But you were talking about it, and I never knew it. And we were walking, and we passed the Dunkin' Donuts that was opening literally right as we passed. And I was just fascinated by how George Lucas wasn't the mastermind behind everything.
Well, he was the mastermind,
but there was a lot of other people that were super, super important to making Star Wars happen. I didn't know that, and so I just remember that.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating story.
Yeah, well, I'm going to briefly recount for those of you who aren't familiar with Alan Ladd Jr.'s influence in Star Wars. Sadly, he just recently passed away at the age of 84, which is why this is all kind of coming back to the surface again. But he's had a profound impact on not only Star Wars, though, but even just existing and he's had a profound impact on Star Wars even existing in the first place, but also many classic movies in general. The films that he's produced and helped work on have amassed 150 Academy Award nominations.
Amazing.
Along with 50 Academy Award wins.
Yeah. He himself hasn't gotten those wins. The movies that he's worked on.
But still, yeah.
So that is amazing.
He, as a studio executive and as a producer,
that is insane.
He's responsible for 50 Academy Award wins. That's amazing.
That's crazy.
He's hugely influential. But, I mean, apparently you had told us about him, but I didn't really remember much about this until I had started reading it again. But back in 1973, Ladd had recently heard about this new film called American Graffiti by this up-and-coming filmmaker by the name of George Lucas.
I've heard of that guy.
You might have heard of him.
I think he has a future in the film business.
Probably.
Maybe. I got a good feeling about the guy.
Ladd loved the movie, what he had heard and seen of it, and decided to take a risk and give George $20,000 to write his next screenplay, at which point George pitched the idea of Star Wars, and Ladd loved the idea. He said that he didn't really understand the technology part of it because a lot of that movie was technologically advanced filmmaking.
They had to create the technology to make the movie.
But he said that went over his head, but the part of it, he said he believed in George and his genius. He trusted George. Right.
Glad he did.
George and many others have said that Ladd didn't bank on the movies themselves. Rather, he invested in the creators behind them. he believed in Lucas, and that was all that was needed for Alan.
Wow, that's cool.
And then Alan Ladd would later go on to be behind some of the most successful movies of all time, including, but definitely not limited to, Braveheart.
Wow.
Alien, Willow, Chariots of Fire, which won Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
Rocky Horror Picture Show, and Thelma and Louise. So he has been hugely.
Now, you guys have not seen very many of those at all.
I've only seen Chariots of Fire.
Yeah, I've only seen Chariots.
And you guys
of
were
Fire.
little.
Oh yeah.
I just remember it being boring when I watched it.
It's a really. I think
probably
you would
like it a lot better
more.
now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was like young and had an attention span.
I think it came out in like 1981, 1982. So I was like 6 or 7 years old when it came out. But I saw it in theaters like twice.
Oh, okay. Really?
Wow. I loved it. And it's an amazing story about it basically focuses on 2 British Olympian runners, Eric Liddell and Ben Abram. And one is devout Christian. His family are missionaries to China, and he comes back from China to help to run in the Olympics. And then the other is a Jewish man named Ben Abrams, and he has a completely different mindset about faith and life and all this. They're very different characters with it, and it's a true story. To see how they were rivals with each other, and they never got to actually race against each other because of some things that happened at the Olympics, and they ended up racing in different races, different events because of those things. Both won the gold medals, but it's a fascinating movie.
All I remember is the theme.
That's one of the most, and it's one of the most famous film themes of all time. With it, and you guys haven't seen Braveheart yet?
Not yet. No,
I know
we do want to, but it's just we've never.
We need to take some time to do that.
Oh, of course,
because it's a great.
It's like what, 3 hours long?
Yeah, and I'm surprised we haven't watched Willow yet.
Yeah, we keep every time we're like, oh, we need to watch that movie, and then we just never.
We'll probably just watch it right before the TV show comes out.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. With it, I mean,
have you seen Alien?
I have not. I mean, this is funny how we're a pop culture podcast, but these are shows. See, I didn't watch. I mean, Alien was like that super science, almost horror movie.
Yeah,
that was out in the 80s when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
My family wasn't going to go take me to go see Alien. Willow, we didn't go see, and so then it fell out of. Kind of circulation. You couldn't really find it up until it was out on Disney Plus. I've seen Thelma and Louise. It's fine movie. Really... Braveheart I've seen like a half dozen times. It's a fantastic movie. I love the movie Braveheart with it. And I have seen
many times,
2 or 3 times at least,
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show, 17, 18, 19-year-old kid living in Colorado Springs, hanging out with the theater people down there. When I say theater, man, I was like in community theater. And I'm telling you, I'm acting in community theater. I'm hanging out with the community theater people. And when the Rocky Horror Picture Show played at the Colorado Springs Auditorium, I was there with my toilet paper and my toast. So,
God,
and if you're
weird,
it is weird.
You've explained it to us, and it's just weird.
It is.
The first time I heard of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, we were going to see Edge of Tomorrow, and I saw a poster. I'm like, is that like a remake of Rocky?
That's what I thought.
It is weird.
Yeah. Doesn't it have House in it?
Hugh Laurie?
I don't think Hugh Laurie is in it. No, but it's got Susan Sarandon.
No, I'm thinking of shoot.
I can't.
What's his name?
Tim Curry. It's got Tim Curry.
Yeah,
he's
the main guy.
The main dude.
You seem like slightly like weirded out that you even watched it.
I am a little weirded out that I watched it. So.
Your regrets as a young
man.
But,
so anyway, it was a lot of fun. So those are great movies. We should chat like some of that. I don't think we'll watch Rocky Horror Picture Show.
No.
Yeah, we won't. I don't think I could watch that with my kids. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
I don't think I have any desire to. Anyways.
Wow. But I would watch Braveheart with you guys. Alien, I would watch.
Yeah.
Willow, I would watch. Thelma and Louise, I wouldn't. But
Chariots of Fire too.
Chariots of Fire, I'd watch it again with you guys.
We got to have an Alan Ladd Jr.
marathon.
Sammy and I will watch something this weekend probably.
Yeah. But Nate.
Yes.
The current climate of Hollywood seems to be largely, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but largely a reliance on reboots, remakes, and sequels. Now, do you think we'll see someone take a risk like Alan Ladd did with George Lucas and his idea anytime soon?
I don't know. I mean, while there is a lot of remakes and reboots and sequels, those remakes and reboots and sequels can be really influential on cinema. I mean, take a look at the Batman. It's done something brand new with cinema. But you also have to take into account there are a lot of directors that are constantly making original ideas. I mean, Christopher Nolan is an amazing example of that.
That's a good point.
Every single movie he's done for his whole career has been different from each other. And they've all changed something with cinema, changed how people look at some stuff. It's always been amazing. But then, I mean, with his next movie coming out, a classic change on cinema. This is going to be the first movie in a long time that's going to be filmed in IMAX black and white. And it's a biopic of Oppenheimer. Going to be kind of speaking on that situation, and that's going to be changing a lot with how we go. So there are people still taking risks, and I mean you have Rian Johnson, who decided to try to make a whole new franchise out of Knives Out, and it worked, and he's going to be doing great. And that was a risk because Knives Out could not work in the climate that we have today. A dark comedy murder mystery doesn't seem like something that would appeal to a lot of people nowadays. That would appeal to the crowd of Clue back in the 90s and 80s, but not now, really. And it took off. People really loved it. Yeah. So there are still people taking risks.
Yeah. Dad, Alan Ladd took a risk on George. On George, though, but not Star Wars. Why do you feel it's more important to focus on the person rather than what they may be doing?
Wow, this is like a really deep conversation that we don't have time to get into as much as I would probably like to. But you know, it's interesting. I'm a big fan of the business thought leader named Simon Sinek, who did the TED Talk on the Golden Circle. And if you've not checked that out, you need to check it out. But anyway, the idea of, he's spent the last 15, 20 years really kind of speaking into this. And it's one interesting thing that he says is, you know, it doesn't matter what business you're in, what product you sell or create. Is it a podcast? Is it movies? Is it, you know, a lawnmower or, you know, bake cookies? All of those things should be secondary to the reality of everything that makes your business work is people. You know, it's the employees that work with you. It's the people first mindset. It's the customers that come in, people first mindset. Everything has to do with the people. And when you get your eyes off of the people and you focus on the product or on the bottom line, then you make a ton of mistakes, and you start making bad decisions. And so, you know, I think that one of the reasons that Alan Ladd is responsible for some of these amazing stories and these amazing films, and I'm sure the influence that Alan Ladd, the fingers of that, you know, we're going to spread for generations when it comes to the film business. And all of that has to do with because he took an interest in people versus the profits at the movie studio. And he was willing to invest and fight, you know, the story of the way he fought for Star Wars, and fought for George Lucas because he believed in it, even though he kept saying, if you read, you know, see the interviews with him and you read interviews about, or articles about it, he never really got it until he saw it in the theater. He never really made sense what he was doing, but he's like, there's something to it. And I believe in George, and we're going to finish this movie. And so we need more of those types of people in business. We need more of those types of people in our own personal lives. We need more of those types of people in our churches that are focused on the people and not how many butts are in the pews and how much money was in the offering plate. And I'm going to start preaching here, so I'm going to stop all of that. It's about the people. And if we keep people first in the focuses that we do, it's going to make a big interest. So I guess I got my own dad moment in this.
Yeah,
all right, there we go. Yeah. So.
Excuse me. Oh, wow.
You all right there, Sam?
You got choked up.
You got all choked up by my dad moment.
You know, with the current climate of Hollywood being playing it safe with reboots, remakes, and sequels, it's good to look back and remember that some of those franchises that are being rebooted, remade, or sequeled, including Star Wars, wouldn't exist without someone like Alan Ladd Jr. taking a risk on a young filmmaker with a bright idea.
Absolutely. Very good.
Thank you.
That was a good segment. That was kind of hard thing because I mean, we wanted to talk Star Wars, but there wasn't a lot of Star Wars news this week.
Yeah.
So we got to talk it that way.
We did.
That's interesting. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
Yeah, so 20th Century Studios president is confident the Avatar sequel will debut this year. Not sure how that's going to happen.
I felt like it was supposed to debut like 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's like at this point, does anybody even really care? Anyway,
no. Invincible showrunner Simon Rachopa, I don't know, reveals why season 2 is taking so long. It's just been working on other shows and just production delays. I mean, even Robert Kirkman himself said that they haven't started working on it quite yet, and so it sucks because I'm waiting for a trailer at least or something because the season's going to be so good because the first one was.
Yeah, the first one was good. Sam, have you finished reading the comics yet?
No, I'm like about halfway through the second compendium.
Slacker. I read it twice.
I don't have time like you.
Yeah, I guess college will do that. So, Quantic Dream. That's a hard word to say. Their Star Wars Eclipse game is being delayed until late 2027, potentially 2028. This is that kind of a controversial, not the game, but the company is controversial over some stuff with that. I don't know if that means that Lucasfilm is shopping the game to other potential studios, but we'll have to wait and see. So sucks.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to the show. Friday's episode is going to be awesome. It's going to be with Kevin Scott. He's going to talk about some High Republic stuff, of course, but then also talking about watching Star Wars, specifically Star Wars Rebels with his daughters.
Oh, great.
And scary Star Wars stories. So that'll be fun. And thank you for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast.
If you had a good time listening, it would be awesome if you could share this with your friends.
Yeah, and of course, the show is only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world. So if you like that much and you want to get more, like us on Facebook and join our Facebook discussion group and follow us on Twitter to get in on all of the action. Keep up to date with everything we've got going on at TatooineSons.com as well.
Yeah, that's right. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss our next episode. Make sure that you give us a review, please. We would truly appreciate it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and whatever podcast app you're listening to it on. That would be awesome. I guess that's going to do it. Anything else you guys want to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, always. This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.